Okay, I got my block back from the machine shop yesterday. They decked the surface here about 20 thousandths. That'll give me a little bit more compression and give me a little bit more power. I am now making an oiling mod to this engine. These main journals come from the factory, drilled out to about 1/4 inch, and I have enlarged this to 5/16 on all 6 mains. And what that does is going to put more oil to this main and to the rod bearings and less throughout the engine. What else is in there in the engine? Well, valve train. But I am using a Gen 3 rocker arm, and that rocker arm has a roller trunnion, so it doesn't really need all that much oil. If you're making this mod on a Gen 1 or Gen 2 with stock rocker arms, beware that you are going to be taking a little bit of oil away from them. May not be a big deal, but I do feel safer running roller rockers with this mod. So 5/16, and then you want to chamfer the edge a little bit. So now I'm going to take this thing to the car wash, and I am going to wash out all the aluminum shavings before I start the honing process. Okay, so I've got my block washed off, and I blew it dry, oiled these cylinders with some WD-40 to keep them from rusting, and now I'm going to check my main bearing clearance. This is the thrust here in the middle. Okay, came off, well, it's on both on the bearing and on the crank shaft. So I don't know if you guys can see this. Alright, so let's see if we can measure what we got here. That light blue is it. And this here is at 15 thousandths, and it looks like it might be just a hair bit wider than 15. Ouch, that's tight. So, if I ordered bearings 1/1000ths oversized, that should give me 25. And that's not bad. I'll go with 25, but I don't want to go 15. 15 is what these things come with from the factory, around 10 or 15 10,000ths. So these bearings are hardly worn at all. And I don't know, that's a little too tight for me for a race engine. So we're going to be swapping these things out with some .001 oversized bearings. I'm going to check all the mains though, just to double check, but I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to do. Okay, here is the number 1 main bearing, and I'm checking it here. And if you'll notice, this plastic gauge, if you look at it closely, measures somewhere between 0.015, oh, thank you, this thing focused, 0.015, and down here is closer to 2 thousandths. Always go with the fattest part. Measure the fattest part of the plastic gauge, because the looser clearance isn't going to get you in the trouble. It's where it's tightest. The tightest part is going to get you in trouble. So go with the fattest part. And that's 15 10,000ths on number 1. I'm going to pull this crank out, and we're going to hone the cylinders. Get this thing ready to go. There we go. Alright, let's work on these cylinders. Alright, so you can see the shiny glaze we've got on these things. Use a little WD-40 for some lube. Make sure you got your garage protected. This stuff's going to drip all over the place. I've got some cardboard down. Alright, we're just going for a nice even crosshatch pattern here. Oh man, that looks pretty darn good already. A lot of crud in there. And I'm looking at my pattern, and right now my pattern still is very horizontal. And I like to get more of an angle on the pattern, so I'm going to do a little bit more. I'm going to speed up, not the drill, but the rate at which I move the drill in and out. You're shooting for about a 30-degree angle on the crosshatch pattern. Let's see if I can get a little light in there to show it to you. Oh, there goes my WD-40. There we go. Now you can see a little bit of that crosshatch pattern. Again, I'm still running a little bit thin on the angle. It's probably around 20 degrees, so I need to keep that drill going slow and increase my vertical speed a little bit more. Yeah, I'm trying to get you guys some good video. Here you can see the glaze. Oh, that is beautiful there. Nice pattern. Nice. That's another good one. I'm getting good at this. Very nice. So, one of the issues that I'm going to have with this block now is the oiling. If you remember, I enlarged the main oil hole right here and chamfered it to get a little bit more oil to the lower end. And with a stock bearing, that hole is now the restriction. So I can go in there and I can drill that out very carefully to a larger size. But the new bearings don't have a hole. All they have is an enlarged slot. So I either need to leave the slot as is or try to cut on the bearing and introduce a hole there. Alright, so now I need to drill out my new main bearing. Okay. Put a little mark on here where the hole lines up with the bearing. Remember, I drilled out the main oil gallery for the mains to 5/16 of an inch. These bearings are obviously slotted, not drilled. So we'll be putting a little hole right in the middle. And I tried this to do it by hand with a hand drill. It was pretty tricky. I recommend you use a drill press. Spend a little bit of time lining this up. Here we go. There you go, nice and slow. Don't clamp your bearing too tight in your vise or you're going to screw it up. And this is just barely clamped, okay? People are freaking out there, I'm sure you guys are. But as you guys know, whenever you drill a hole through metal, you're going to have a raised edge all the way around the circumference of that hole. So we're going to knock that down now. Theoretically, you don't really need to do it on this back side here, because my 5/16 holes that I drilled are chamfered, and this raised area will probably just fit into the chamfer, but I want to do it anyway. I'm using a sharp razor blade. You will be able to remove metal with this, so just be careful, nice and easy. Just a little bit, that's all you need. Just to shave off that corner. You're chamfering these holes, so to speak. And with your razor blade, you can kind of go over there, make sure it's still good. I'm still hitting somewhere. Oh, I see. So I'm going to chamfer a little bit more here. Just like that, until the razor blade slides over, it doesn't catch it. Go both directions. I can still feel a little something. Oh, there it goes. Not anymore. That feels good. Nothing at all there. Good. And the other side as well. This is the bearing side, so be careful here. Don't scratch your bearing. Nice and easy. Just like that. Just a little bit. There we go. Now you don't want to run over your bearing surface with your razor. Just do that on the back side. And when you do this, you'll see a little bit of that copper showing through. That line there, that's from the bore gauge. Those are okay. Don't worry about those lines. Alright. And just kind of fill it with your fingernail. Fingernails are safe. Razor blades are not. Ready to install. Alright. So 5 main bearings drilled and polished. And finally, the thrust bearing. Make sure you look over these things very carefully if you make this mod. You don't want any kind of burr whatsoever. Even 0.005 thousandths of an inch will mess up the crush on your bearing. It'll mess up your clearances. In place there. Alright. And now we've got considerably more oiling to our mains and rods. Alright. Look at that. This was supposed to have been a clean crankshaft. How much dirt is still there? To oil the bearings, I just use Mobil 1. Some people will use assembly lube or whatever, especially if you're going to store an engine for a while. Assembly lube is probably the better thing to use, but this thing is going to get fired up pretty soon. Or so I hope. I'm just going to use engine oil. Plus, when you prime it with engine oil. So I think this will work just fine. There we go. Nice and easy. Come on. There we go. Get some more oil on there. We're always checking out these bearings. Make sure there's no crud on them. Looping them with the Mobil 1 oil. Make sure there's no crud on your main caps. Number 2. And install the caps correctly. I am replacing all these bearings. The old ones weren't actually that bad, but I'm going to be loosening up the clearances a little bit. I'm shooting for about 3/1000ths of an inch instead of the 2/1000ths that I had measured earlier. Actually, I think it was somewhere between 1.5 and 2/1000ths, which is great if you want a nice tight engine. But on the track, that can give you some problems. Remember, it is oil flow, not oil pressure, that keeps the bearings lubricated. Theoretically, you could run 10 psi if you had enough oil flow. If you feel any binding when you do this, something's wrong. You got to stop and figure out what happens before you continue. All right. We want to try to set our thrust. And we'll do it again. Alright, so I am plastic gauging the number 5 main now. Oh, it's still pretty tight. I can tell by the thickness of the plastic gauge. Get some light in here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's closer to 15 than to 2/1000ths. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and remove the plastic gauge. I'm going to remove the crank, and I'm going to take the crank to my machine shop, and we are going to have them polish all the mains to see if we can't get this thing within spec. Okay, so I'm at my local machine shop now. We had some problems with our main bearing clearances earlier using the plastic gauge, so I brought it by the shop just to double check everything with a dial bore gauge. And these are the numbers we came up with on the main journals. The first one, not bad at all. 23 to 26/10,000ths. That's about perfect. Maybe a little bit on the loose side for an aluminum block, but not bad at all. Number 2, a bit tight, 15 to 17/10,000ths. That's going to be an issue. Number 3, the thrust bearing, 19 to 21, almost perfect. Number 4, 17 to 21. Again, that's pretty good. Number 5, this is our other problem main. I think we measured 13 to 15 10,000ths clearance. That's tight. That is like factory fresh from the showroom tight. So we gotta loosen that one up for sure. And then our last one here is, let's say 22 to 24 10,000ths. So what we're doing is I went ahead and swapped out the number 1 and the number 5 bearings. And we're gonna re-mic these, see if we can get the average a little bit better. And if that works, then we'll probably swap out the number 2 and the number 6. See if we can try to settle in right around 20 10,000ths front to back. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so we didn't pick up much on this crankshaft clearances by swapping around our bearings. So I'm pulling the crank back out. At best, we picked up maybe 1 10,000th of an inch, and this is still too tight. So we got to figure out what else we can do to try to get a couple of these bearing clearances closer to 20 10,000ths. Stay tuned. Okay, so you saw that the bearing clearances on our Clevite bearings are still too tight. We ordered the Clevite bearings with extra clearance, extra 0.001 inch of clearance, and we're still getting a couple of measurements under 2,000ths of an inch, and that is just not acceptable for a road racing engine. So I read on the LS forums that the Federal Mogul Sealed Power bearings run a little bit looser. So I've ordered a set of those, and when those come in, we're gonna drop those in, remeasure everything, and we'll see if we can use those. So thanks for watching, and hit the like button if you want to see more.